Bam. Hi guys, hi folks. Here is Mr. Rip, and tonight we have the first episode of my podcast, the Ripcast. And tonight, for the first edition, I'm happy to announce I have a guest. I'm stalking since a few months of I really like what he does and how he approaches like content creation online, and we have a lot of things to talk about. And his name is Luca Dellanna, and it's a bit complicated to introduce you. Can you introduce yourself, Luca?
Yes, thank you for inviting me. So I am the author of 7 books. I'm a management consultant, and I also run courses, some modules in universities and some online courses, for example, on anti-fragile organizations. And I'm based in Turin in Italy.
Okay, but I saw on your profile somewhere that you're also familiar with Singapore, or is it
Yes,
wrong?
exactly. Yes. So my wife is from Singapore, and we regularly spend a few months each year in Singapore. So yeah, actually, I'm dividing my time between here and Singapore.
Okay, so only hot weather for you. Okay,
Yes.
how? Yeah, no, sorry, go ahead.
No, we're trying usually to go during January to March, April. Yes.
Okay, great. So how I met Luca. I'm a Rome research believer. Probably if you are into my audience, you already know that I love Rome research, and I'm a believer. I subscribe to the believer plan. And I'm into personal knowledge management and blah, blah, blah. Being part of the Rome community, I follow what happens in the Rome community as well. And it happened like a few months ago that one of the internal email, the Roman Times, introduced me to Luca. So because Luca is actually is actually writing books in a very different way. Can you tell us what is an R book?
Yes, so rBooks is a format that I pioneered last year, and it's like an ebook but in a ROM format, and it has a lot of advantages while you read it and after you read it. So while you read it, you can read it as if it were, let's say, like a Wikipedia page, so you can jump between arguments. If there is an argument that branches off from the main topic, you can open it in the sidebar, or you can keep the sidebar open to take notes. And in general, you can do all things that you probably know with Rome.
Okay.
And then there is what happens after you read it. Because after you read it, since the book is in ROM format, it's already imported in your, you can import it in your own database. Or you can just copy paste and it's already in ROM format. You can integrate it with your notes. If you have notes that are on the same subject of my book, they will seamlessly integrate. If you took notes, they will be there for you. If you took highlights, they will be in context. If you
So
use ROM for...
I can actually take notes on the book because I can
Exactly.
add. Wow, that's mind bending. That's
Yes.
amazing.
Then, if in 1 year I decide to publish an additional chapter, it will integrate with it. If there is a new edition, it will not be a new edition. Like on Kindle, for example, if I publish a new edition, and you decide to read it, you lose all your highlights. In ROM, not. You can build upon it.
Well, unless you do some like upgrade, new version of some existing chapters, or I don't know if you ever do this.
In ROM, you mean?
Yes. Let's say
I didn't do it yet, but I plan to do it for the future. So usually what I do with my books is that every year I publish a new edition. So for example, okay, not exactly all the time for all my books, but for a lot of my books, every year there is the new edition in which I add maybe a chapter or something like that. And I plan to do it as well with ROM books. And November will be the first anniversary of my first ROM book, and I plan to publish additional chapters that will integrate with what you already got.
Okay. I have so many questions about this process. First of all, maybe someone is not very familiar with ROM research. ROM research is a tool, it's one of the possible tools for essentially for a lot of things. I use it for many purposes like personal knowledge management, journaling, productivity somehow, even if it's not the best tool for productivity. As I say, planning or note taking, of course. So you also I assume you're also like a heavy user of ROM research.
Yes, though I don't use it for everything.
Okay.
So, for example, for my to-do list, I use a to-do app on my phone,
Mm,
uh, mainly because it's a system that was working well and I honed it over the years, and I didn't want
mm,
to switch unnecessarily. I mostly use Roam for note taking. Of so usually my process is that I take a lot of notes on different topics, and then one day I decide I will write a book on this topic. So usually what I
mm,
do is that I use Roam to consult my notes to see if there are threads, if there are common things. It's very good because like if you have one note, you can with Roam you can just highlight one word and you can see if you have other note that connects to it. And then, yeah, I can use that to build, to decide for a first outline.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, that's mostly what I use it for. And I also use it to, let's say, to journal some meetings
mm.
or some maintenance. For example, every time I go to the doctor or I make maintenance on
Yeah,
my
I
car.
also do this. It's a kind of as it called the CMR, no, the yes, customer management. I mean,
Yeah, CRM.
CRM.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, sure. Yeah, I also do that. How do you? I mean, in ROM research, so you mainly use it as a base, as a like a repository for your books. So you have your ROM database, and you use like tags as human page references. And how do you decide what to tag? I mean, how to tag notes, for example. I have a problem of finding the perfect structure for my notes. No, I sometimes try to tag abstract concept. I mean, this is like psychology, so I will tag psychology, but then I have an infinite number. Like uh, sometimes I try to be more deep. So to what's your usage of like tags?
To be honest, I don't really use tags too much. What I
Mm,
do is that I try to use a common language.
mm,
Um, so, for example, there are some words that they have synonyms. I try to use always the same one, so that but the thing is that I don't try to decide too much how I will categorize things too early on. Often
mm,
because sometimes you don't know. And
mm-hmm.
it's really the idea of like in the first stage, I just copy paste things which I think that I might use in the future. And then a separate process is, I want to know what all the notes that I have on this topic. And then I use search
Yeah. Also,
and then maybe
you
at that moment
search.
I will tag. Maybe at that
Okay.
moment when I know
Okay.
the use, I will tag. Yeah.
Okay. Do you know the concept? So you also collaborated with Thiago Forte, and we probably are
Yes.
coming on are going there sooner. But do you know the progressive summarization technique by Thiago Forte? So extracting notes and then having two, three, four passes, and at every pass you can like improve your note taking. It seems something like this. Seems something that's connected to that. I was wondering if you
Yes,
know
I
this
tend to
technique.
do it mentally. I don't tend to do it like on writing or like physically
Mm,
editing notes. Yeah.
okay. Okay.
So what
Great.
happens is that yes, like I have systems like there are some topics on which I care about a lot, or I know that I will write books, and so maybe I set a reminder for myself every 3 months to check all the notes on this topic. But
Okay. I
that's more
mean,
of a mental process.
when I was asking about tagging, it's because I use tagging as a way to discover my notes. So let's see what I've written on this topic, and I go on that page, on the I don't know, on the passive investing page, and then I know that I will find all the back references. So when I write notes, when I write my thoughts on extract notes, I try to tag in order to be easily discoverable by my future self. So that's the process, and I wonder, yeah, if that resonates with you.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
go
I
on, go
mean,
on.
yeah, our books. One question that I have, you say that you produce a book in ROM format that can be integrated in other people ROM databases, uh, or do they live in there also on their own database? I mean, when
Both.
you
They
okay,
have the option. So every book, I give my readers three options. So the first one is that they access the read-only version, which is hosted on my database.
okay,
And some readers they like to do it because they think, oh, I will not take notes. I just want to read the book, but I want to read it in a non-linear way and so on, and that's the easiest for them. Then some readers they can import it in a new graph. So they create a new graph, they import the book, and they have the book as a standalone graph. And
okay,
other people instead they import it in their own graph. So they import it as I provided the book as a
sure,
JSON file, and it becomes basically a set of new pages in
okay.
the graph.
Why JSON and not Markdown, zip file, something like this?
Because at the time in which I know that now there are more options. At the time in which I began writing the first ROM book, there were fewer options, and JSON was the best one.
Okay, okay, good to know. No, the problem is that okay, I'm trying to think the nerd way. Let's say I get your book, so I will get all your pages, and I will have some collision with maybe with my pages. Have you thought about that? How maybe you don't care or
Yeah, no. So the pages are named as per the chapters of the book, and it's very unlikely
okay,
that you have a
okay.
page which has the title of one of my chapters.
So
Uh,
there's no you don't do tagging, you don't do other.
yeah,
It's
there are
just
tags. There are tags, but usually the tags are like specific enough so that I don't think that you will have any unwanted collisions.
sometimes I do want to have collisions. I mean,
Yes,
I want to find your stuff and my stuff
exactly.
and merge
Exactly.
together.
So what I do is that when there is a tag that relates to a topic, I tend to write, I try to imagine what's the most common one or two tags that people might use. I don't know, hashtag investing or
Okay, good,
hashtag
good.
management or something like that. And then there are other tags that I use for the purpose of the book, which instead they tend to be more specific. I give an
Unique.
example. Um, in my books, I tend to give a lot of examples of how the concept I explain can apply to practical life. And I give you examples, for example, some on investing, some on management, some on personal life, some on relationships, some in sports. And then I tag as, for example, hashtag example dash sport.
Okay, so you have
In
a
that,
naming convention. You kind of
yes,
a naming convention for tags for like pages. You want them to be unique, I assume. So
yes.
okay, okay. Please go ahead. That's interesting.
No, that's it. Then I also tend not to overuse tags because I want the reader to use my book. So I want the user to tag the sections of my book that he thinks are relevant. I want the user to, yeah. So that's also why, like one comment that I got from some of the most power users in the ROM community when they read my book is, oh, I thought it would be more heavily tagged. Or
Yeah,
I thought,
exactly.
that's a conscious choice because on one side I want to give like active reading. So the idea that when you're reading my book, you're not just like passively reading it, but you're also, if you want, you're taking notes, you're tagging things and so on. And then the second reason is because I cannot know your tagging system. I cannot know what your database already contains and so on. And so I want to give the reader the choice of doing it. Yeah.
One problem I can see is like what's the so-called reconciliation. I mean, I already have several pages which are like maybe different letter capitalization of the same word. So maybe I will find your investing with capital I while mine is with lowercase I. Do you have an explicit naming convention, or as you say, like everything is lower letter, or everything is camel case, or did you
Yeah,
thought about this,
yeah,
or?
everything is lower letter for this. I do realize that it's not standard. That would be interesting. On one hand, that would be interesting if there were some kind of standard.
Yeah,
Maybe from Rome. On the other hand, I also think that the product and the ecosystem are relatively fresh. And if we decide too early on a standard, we might not necessarily pick the best one. So yeah, I'm in two minds about this.
I think they got a lot of requests to find a way to make case insensitive, or maybe it's not just case. Maybe sometimes you have a dash that separates words, or like other way to express rules for reconciliation.
Yeah.
By the way, how did you come with the rBooks idea? That's something like that's amazing, because if I can explore this topic a bit, it seems like you know the concept of digital gardening.
Yes.
Okay, I don't. So the question is, how do you come up with this idea, and if that's related to digital gardening?
Yes, so I was writing, at the time I was writing a book on ergodicity, and I was writing it as a traditional book. And my problem at the time was that a traditional book has necessarily a linear structure, but the topic of ergodicity in particular is composed of multiple, let's say, modular topics. And it's best explained in a way like as a Wikipedia page or as a set of Wikipedia pages. And I was considering like how to do that. I was even considering like publishing part of the book as a website, but then it came with a lot of challenges and that you can imagine. And then at that time, I discovered Rome. I discovered Rome relatively late, let's say, and while I discovered Rome, I was writing the book, so that was fresh in my mind. That was my problem during my day, and then I immediately made the connection that Rome was perfect for this kind of topics.
You kind of pioneered this field, and
Yeah,
you also have a website which is Rome Dash Books.
correct.
So you are trying to become the R publisher of the world. So how many Rome books there are out there? I mean, is that something that's growing in popularity, or
Yeah,
no?
so far there are a few Rome books published, but I know of a lot of people who are writing them.
Okay,
So right now,
maybe
yeah.
I'm the next one. Maybe I'm the next one.
Awesome. Yeah. So right now, most of the books that have been like fully published, like not just a chapter or two, but fully published, are basically mines, plus one by Thiago Forte that I collaborated with him to bring it in Rome book format. But I know that there are a lot of people that are writing books. I know some that are quite advanced that they already published like chapters, or already the pre-order for the books are available.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's great. Okay, I'm interested in how do you think your readers consume the book? Do you have any feedback from readers? Do they go linear? Is there someone who, I mean, can they buy just the old ebook version of the book?
Yes, so all my Rome books are also published in ebook version, in print version, and even in hardcover version. So
Okay.
you have the option to choose it. Rome books, compared to the, let's say, linear version, they have additional things. They have additional content and, of course, additional features and so on. But let's say that most of the concepts, like the ideas in the book, they're all there in both formats.
Okay, so they are literally like one to one, or there is
Yeah, so
also like.
usually, yes. So you have two approaches when you write a Rome book. Either you write it in Rome book, like directly in Rome, or, and that's what I personally do, I collect the notes in Rome, then I write the book in Word.
Oh, really? I wasn't expecting
Yes.
that.
And once I have the book, which is ready to be published as an ebook and a traditional print book, I move it back to Rome, and then I add everything that makes it a Rome book. So I add the features, I add
Okay.
the tagging, I add the reference pages, which are like pages that contain a list of all the other pages divided by topic, and so on and so on and so forth.
So you essentially create like one page for each chapter or for each
Yes, yes. So the
theme.
process is that I start to create one page per chapter, then I create the table of contents, and then I create summary pages for the main topics that contain that link back to the chapters,
Oh, so like
and then
the glossaries in the traditional books, like you go there and then you
yes,
find this thing is at page 725, which is obsolete now, of course. Yes.
exactly, and then use case pages.
Wouldn't it be
So
like,
yeah.
I mean, this back references, wouldn't they be like for free if you just create pages on those topics? I
What do you
mean,
mean for free?
I mean for free. I mean, if you just if these concepts that you are like creating a table for, if they became pages, no, you can go on the page and find the page references. So, what are the those tables for?
So I handwrite like a summary.
Okay.
And then, of course, like at the bottom, you have like the table with all the references.
Yes.
But what I do is that I also try like to divide them sometimes by use case. So, for example, if
Okay.
if if you want to use the concept for this, then you have these three references. If you
Okay.
want to use it for that, yeah.
I see. It's more. It's much more elaborated. Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, that's good. So I also assume they are not too much indented. That's essentially there's not a lot of visual processing on top of that. So you can read a ROM book on your desktop, and it reads almost like a blog page.
Yes. So this is another thing. Like the other comment I got from a lot of the ROM community is, why didn't I use indentation? And the reason I didn't use indentation is because at the time in which I published the book for the first time, if you imported a file that contains indentations, all the indentations show as collapsed. And then it's a pain
Okay.
in the ass for the user every time he opens a page to open all the indents. And if he forgets to do it, maybe he misses some content.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, maybe this is already being fixed or whatever.
it's been
But
fixed. It's been fixed
yeah,
recently, and
yeah.
I plan to introduce indentation in the next, let's say, editions of my books. Yeah.
In order to enjoy the ROM version of your book, I assume readers, they have to have a ROM subscriptions. So, or can they have fun? Oh, but they can have fun with the read-only version, probably. Yes or not?
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure. Yeah, I suppose. No, sorry, because the read-only version is shared with email addresses that have a ROM account. So
Okay,
no, so
so
they need, yeah.
are you aware of ROM alternatives like
Yes.
Obsidian, Foam, Athens? There are like many which are
Yes.
coming to surface.
Yes, and actually, so what happened with my second book, my second ROM book, also published in Obsidian version,
Okay, so there's also an Obsidian
which,
version.
yes, which contains, let's say, 85% of the feature of a ROM book, because there were a couple of things I couldn't reproduce in Obsidian, but most of the things are there. What
Okay.
happened is that I'm not exaggerating, more than 98% of people that bought, let's say, the ROM/Obsidian version, they bought it in ROM.
Oh, okay. Oh,
And I
okay.
had almost no sales of the Obsidian version, even though there were a lot of people who asked me make the Obsidian version and then they didn't buy it. The Obsidian community didn't respond at all, whereas the ROM community responded very well. So because of those reasons, I don't plan to support Obsidian in the future anymore.
But okay, I'm wondering. Uh, okay, what could be the reason? Maybe it's like a sunk cost fallacy that people like who paid already a ROM subscription, they're more willing, people more willing to spend money, or I don't know, maybe
Yeah, I
Obsidian
think
is
yeah, I think that that's also the thing that maybe like I don't know, but like uh yeah, there is a different maybe average like willingness to spend, or not maybe willingness, but also like price anchor.
okay.
Yeah, because yeah,
Okay, yeah, that's weird. I wasn't expecting that. I was actually
me neither.
expecting because I jumped on the Rome bandwagon as soon as Nat Ellison, you probably know Nat. He wrote an enthusiastic post on January 2020, and then he actually launched a course on Rome research. I was probably one of the first people who signed up for the. It
Oh
was still
wow.
free. It was still free. It was still in the beta version. I could have kept just using the beta version, but then I decided to join the Believer plan. So I'm using Rome since 1 year and a half, and but I'm so enthusiastic about that. But people keep asking me, "Hey, Rome is pretty expensive. Well, Obsidian is free. Why don't you switch? Why don't everyone switch to Obsidian?" And that's why your experience it's a bit it's a bit strange. Maybe because you are more known in the Rome community than the Obsidian one,
Yeah, that's
or
also a possibility. Yeah.
okay. I'm thinking. I have a few more questions to ask you about your rBooks. Your latest book is called "This is Management." No, I see that it is a merge of two books.
Yes.
So I've been thinking about this. Essentially, you are trying to you are distributing an ecosystem. This can grow. This kind of a living thing. Do you have a vision about this, or it's something that just happened? Maybe next book will be detached from all the previous books, or do you plan to build? I don't know, to sell access to your brain, or to your collection of things, or
Yes, so the idea would be that like so I write on a lot of topics. So I write on management, I write on behavioral sciences, I write on risk management, I write on uh, statistics, economy. Yeah, but the idea was of this is management was that I happen to write two books on management,
okay.
and of course there is some overlap. Uh, Even if they observe from two different angles, but they're still about management. So I was like, it makes sense to merge them. And yeah, the idea would be the next time that I publish something that I publish in third normal book on management, for example, I plan then to
To
make a version
bundle.
that integrates, yeah, correct. And the idea would be that at the end that like if you want to learn from me from management, there is this thing, and then you can access like a lot of things, and you can use it, and you can integrate it in your own notes.
It
If you
looks
happen to,
like software distribution process. Like, can someone just buy a patch that attaches to the system? So it's a very modular system.
yeah, that would be the idea. And then I also, by the way, also my newsletter, which I publish once every 2-3 weeks,
Okay.
it's also released with in a ROM version, which means that you can so either you download the file that is a page that you import, or easier, you visit the ROM page which is on the web, and then you just copy and paste it into your own ROM graph. And the
Okay.
magical thing is that it automatically integrates both with my books and maybe with the other editions of the newsletter. So I make a very practical example. In in the very first edition of my newsletter, I talked. I wrote a couple of essays on Amazon. In the second edition of the newsletter, I wrote another thing that referenced Amazon. And if you happen to read them in the email, they're like separate, of course. But if you imported them in Rome, then they link to each other.
Okay.
And you also have automatically created an Amazon page in which there are all the references on Amazon, and you can use it as a building block for yourself. So that's kind of the idea. So the idea is that what I'm giving are not books that you use them and then they stay there, but they become building blocks for your knowledge.
I'm doing the same without knowing, because I have like a monthly, it's not a newsletter, it's a post on my blog, which is called the Monthly Learning Journal, where I put like my findings, the articles I've read, the sorry, the video I watched, and they're also available in ROM format. So
Cool.
I'm doing the same without knowing. Sorry. That's great. Sorry. Okay, you say you collaborated with Thiago Forte. What did you do for Thiago?
Yes, I happened to meet Thiago in 2020 in Singapore. And yeah, then I think that I've been writing about rBooks on Twitter, and then I think that it's him who contacted me a few months ago, and he was like, "I'm publishing this new book, and I would be interested in moving it, in also producing a rBook version."
Okay.
And so I offered that to do it for him, and yeah, then we did it.
Okay, how did the sale go? I mean, we probably don't know.
No, so he didn't sell it. He separately. Basically, if you bought his book on Amazon, either on paperback or in Kindle version, you would also get access to the rBook version.
Okay, great. Maybe I will also do that, because I like Thiago. I follow a lot of his free material, but I'm too cheap to purchase his expensive course. I don't know if you do you know his main concept of building a second brain? Are you familiar
Yes.
with the concept? Have you took the course or?
No, I didn't take the course. The reason I didn't take the course is simply because I have like already a process of myself for basically doing the same things. And it has been like honed over the years and it's working well. So personally, I don't feel the need to.
Okay, makes sense.
But, yeah.
I'm
But
also
otherwise, I
kind
think
of.
it's useful.
Yes. I don't know if such courses are more useful for those who already have a system in process, or for those who are start from zero. By the way, I saw you are publishing your books with Gumroad. Can you
Yes.
talk about it? Why not on Amazon or other?
I love it. So I'm also publishing on Amazon. I'm also publishing on Apple Books, Google Play, Barnes and Nobles. So you can basically find them everywhere. The reason why I'm using Gumroad and why it's the main platform that I promote is because simply it's because I get the highest royalties.
Okay.
Yeah, I just give you an idea. Let's say that there is a book which goes for $20. On Amazon, I get about $9, $5 to
Okay.
$9.
Really? For self-publishing?
Yes.
Oh,
And on Gumroad, I get $19 plus.
really? Then like 95%?
Yes. Yeah. No,
Everything?
Gumroad, they take extremely low royalties. If I'm correct, they take 30 cents plus 2.9%.
Okay, it's like PayPal
Uh,
fees.
if you are a member, so yeah, that's basically Stripe. That's basically
Stripe,
credit
PayPal.
card
Yeah, credit
almost.
cards. Yeah.
Almost. And that's awesome. Plus, with Gumroad, you have the possibility to send an email to your readers when you publish a new book.
Okay, so they're also doing the MailChimp for you?
Yes. Yes, of course, like you cannot abuse it and everything, but it's a way to let my readers know that I'm publishing a new book, which is extremely important. And with Amazon, you don't even know who your readers are.
Okay, but okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. On Amazon, you will get much more visibility and like
Yes. And that's
marketing.
why I do both.
Okay.
Yeah, but
So,
that's the thing. Just to give an idea to like, oh, I'm on everything because there are people who only buy through Amazon and so on and so forth. But if the people who buy on Amazon will just buy on Gumroad, I
You
will
will.
make double the revenue from books.
Wow.
Yeah, I will double my
Good
income
to
from
know. Good
books.
to know. I must admit that I already knew about Gumroad because there are other people I follow that publish their material there. Daniel Vassallo, maybe you know him.
Yes, yes, I know
Maybe
him
he's
well.
part of the co-founder. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
he also works for Gumroad.
Okay.
Yes. And by the way, also I'm lucky enough that my books is one of the very few books that he recommended as well
Okay.
publicly.
Great.
Thank
Which
you.
one?
Thank you very
Which
much,
one?
Daniel. 100 Truths You Will Learn Too Late.
Okay. Okay.
No.
I must admit that I didn't read your book. I will cope with that soon. So you say that essentially you're doing self-publishing. You do your covers. You do everything. I'm
I
very curious
do
about the self-publishing
I
work.
do every single thing in my work, including the websites, everything. The only thing I don't do is the cover.
Hmm.
And there is a German artist that with whom I've been working since the first book. And yeah, I do
Okay.
everything
You don't
else
do
myself.
anything else, like you don't do proofreading or editing, like typesetting or.
I
Hmm.
do everything myself. And now I
Okay.
will
Wow.
explain to you why.
Hmm.
So, if, at least that's my theory, but if you have a career in something else and you decide to write that one book that will be your book, I don't know, your biography or your thing on the topic you've been working for your life, and you have one shot, that one shot must be perfect. And you better go with a publisher, hire an editor, hire a
Sure.
proofreader, and so on and so forth. Now, instead, myself, I know that I will write more books. I already wrote 7, and I will write more on that. And therefore, every time that I do the typesetting for myself, for example, I learn, and the next one will be better. And like maybe now I'm being a bit like too self-confident, but I think that by now I am much better at typesetting than a lot of other things that you see in the market, first thing. And then the
Okay.
second thing is, if I hadn't been doing that myself, I would never have invented rOmbooks, for example,
Good
because you don't
point.
know about the problems and the possibilities. And so that's basically my philosophy. And then the second thing is that I tried once for one of the books to hire an editor and a proofreader, and it went terribly. And by terribly, I mean that the editor, now I'm borrowing an expression from Nassim Taleb, who apparently had the same experience. Like most editors, they catch the mistakes which doesn't matter, we don't matter, and they don't catch the mistakes we do.
It's the same for
And
like even Google Docs, the correction engine. No, sometimes I do want to make, maybe it's my voice to make some minor, maybe even like mistakes, but it's not actually a mistake; it's a stylistic decision. But of course, if there is something wrong, but that doesn't get highlighted by the syntax highlighting, you will not find it, and that's the same for humans, for real
yeah,
editor.
I mean, we need to differentiate fiction from non-fiction. Because of course, fiction, like the editor knows everything, but non-fiction, especially if you're writing about, let's say, high expertise topics, the chances are that the editor doesn't know the topic as well as you do. And the chances that he will focus on things which are not necessarily important. Now, it's true that they provide also the point of view of the reader and are very, but yeah, the other problem is that it also takes a lot of time. And honestly, I don't have the time right now to go through all the process. Or like if I did do that, I wouldn't do a lot of the other things that I'm doing now.
Well,
And I
it's
don't
it's
think that that is,
counter it's
yeah.
counterintuitive because usually, like doing this process should take a lot of time. You say that instead going the classic route would take much more time.
Yeah, because anyway, there would be lot of things you will do. I mean, it depends also on your personality. Like if you, for example, don't give a shit about typesetting, then of course, yeah, you can outsource it. But myself, I know that I outsource it, and then I will still go through it, make some changes, or I will give like requirements, and and that would also take a lot of time.
Okay.
And the same thing is that, like proofreading. Like when I gave the manuscript for proofreading, the one time that I did give it to one, I didn't just take the proofread manuscript, but instead I wanted them to put the edits, like like in the Word document, and then I approve.
Yeah.
Correct, and that also takes a lot of time. And
something like, I don't know, buddy edit, someone who you trust that works in your field, and say, hey, can you read my draft, something like that? You do that?
Yes, I do have early readers, yes.
Okay, so you collect feedback. That's amazing.
But I specifically ask them not to make like corrections. I ask them rather to tell me like what resonated with them, what they didn't, what wasn't clear, like this kind of suggestions. Yeah.
Okay, wow, that's amazing. Do you do any advertising for your material, or
No, almost nothing. I spend about
That's amazing.
I spend about 20 euros per month on Amazon advertising, and that's it. So that's basically nothing. Yeah, there are two reasons why I'm not advertising. The first one is because my books are relatively niche subjects. I mean, not fully niche, like management is not really a niche subject, but still. And advertising for a lot of I found that advertising in books works well for those books that have a very wide readership, like the kind of books that you would put
on the
in a
bookshelf,
supermarket,
like,
even.
yeah,
In a shelf in a supermarket. And then the second reason is because I have a very particular tax situation in which I am taxed based on my revenue and not based on my profits for book sales.
Okay.
Which means that for me, advertising and all other kind of expenses are more
they are recoverable, like,
are more, so advertising becomes more expensive for me.
Okay, got it. That's great. Well, I have a couple of more questions, then maybe we can take some live questions. First of all, what's next on your plate? If you can talk about it. I saw that you wrote about very different topics they seem to be not strictly related. Even there is a background on like behavioral science, I would say. But do you plan to keep going on this direction, or there is something completely unrelated you want to work on?
Yes, so right now what I spent most of the last few months on is this course that I'm running on anti-fragile organizations.
Okay.
It's a course for managers, CEOs, and entrepreneurs that want to make the organization more anti-fragile, which means able to benefit from problems. And I'm running basically one edition every month and a half, and it's live on Zoom. Like I take a group of people, and then for a few weeks we work together every few days, and that's been occupying most of my time over the last few months.
Okay, and you can you how large are those groups, for example?
They're about 10 to 30 people.
Every month. Oh, wow,
Every month and a half.
Okay.
Kind of, yeah.
So it's a cohort-based online learning. I also see that Thiago is pushing this concept of cohort-based. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So that's your main activity, you would call this?
Correct. And then once I'm done that, what I will do is that I will take my book, The Control Heuristic, and I will split it in 3 books. In two books. I explained the reason. So the control heuristic was born with the idea of I put there everything that matters on human behavior.
Okay.
And the result was a very good book from like what you will learn out of it, like the contents, the idea inside, so much that, for example, it got me to present at Nudgestock, which is the largest behavioral science conference. But on the flip side, it's just a lot of things condensed in a few hundred pages. And the most common feedback I got is this could have easily been 3 books.
Wow.
And because it's 3 books, what happens is that it's also like a bit overwhelming to the reader. And so what I will do is that I will actually like separate it into 3 books or 2 books plus a few essays that I will publish for free on the internet, and like elaborate more, explain more, make more examples, and so on and so forth.
How can you be so prolific? You've written 7 books and you already have one of these that can be split into 3, or you also write a lot of essays. What's your productivity routine? How can you really be so prolific?
I don't know. I guess that I'm good at like not taking tasks that do not like really belong to me or add much to me. The other thing is also like, yeah, I tend, like, out of my personality, I don't spend time at social events. Like, I meet with my friends. Like, I have a group of friends that I know since a lot of years. But for example, I tend not to go to, like, I don't know, networking events, conferences, this kind of things.
Yeah,
It's not
sure.
really a
They don't take much. They don't take like too much time off from our lives. It's much more like social media or browsing. Or how can you? How good are you at staying focused while you write? What do you use, like Pomodoro technique, or you do deep work sessions, or
I don't know. I usually work from a coffee bar, from a coffee shop,
okay?
and somehow it works very well for me. Like somehow I manage, like when I'm at the coffee shop, I manage to work. I do work. Yeah,
That's weird. Okay, I was
yeah.
expecting you like to be in your room, like silent or with background music.
No,
Okay. Okay. Well,
but
congratulations,
that's just
because
me.
it's a bit unusual. Well, I knew about a writer who wrote their books on a plane. Like it was like from California to Japan, like both ways in first class, and then he wrote a book. Like every time he did this, I don't remember his
Wow.
name. He was pretty famous for this, for doing this, like traveling first class and writing a book in 24 hours, like in 2 ways. So yeah, everybody has their own schedule, their own routine. So you don't like to, I don't know, sit down for 4 hours and write. That's not your
Oh
thing.
yeah, I sit for 4 hours at the coffee shop.
At the coffee shop, right?
Oh
With some
yeah, yeah.
distractions, I guess.
Like yes, like actually in some of my books, you can read in the acknowledgement part of the book, you can read like, thank you, the staff of this coffee shop in which I happen to. And then usually, which is funny, like usually I tend to like I spend maybe like 2 months in this coffee shop, like maybe every day for in the morning 3 hours or 4 hours, and then I move to the next coffee shop for the next book. But
Yeah.
on the topic, like it also happens sometimes for some clients for consulting projects. Like I go to associate a coffee shop to the topic. Yeah.
But apparently, lockdown and COVID didn't halt your productivity. So what happened? Coffee shops, as far as I remember, they were closed at one point.
Yes. Oh, that's been terrible because like, so what happened is that during the lockdown I was in Singapore. I was living at my in-laws and I spent like all the time working there. And the thing is that to recreate the coffee shop experience, I was drinking a lot of coffee. But because the coffee was like the coffee machine was there, I drank too much coffee. And then I actually had developed a few stomach problems
Mhm.
because like too much coffee without food, like acidity. Now I'm okay, but yeah.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Uh, so you had to bring your own food from home and then do something like this. Okay. Well, that's great. Let's see if you have some live questions. Sorry if we didn't take any. I didn't interact much with our viewership today. I would say there are not many questions. Okay, here Federico is asking. I'm trying to improve on knowledge management. I didn't got much problems with book summaries and taking notes. I'm struggling in the phase when I recall the knowledge. Any advice about that?
I find very useful to write questions like what I want to know or so what happens usually is that I take a sheet of paper, like a physical sheet of paper. I write the question for the information that I'm looking for. And that usually helps me a lot to focus and to look for the right things and figure, yeah. But that's what works for me. By the way, on this, like you were asking earlier the question on how you get so productive. I think that in general, like all those things, like how do you do things, there is not really one method which is best, but it's more like an iterative process. And the technique that I like the most is this thing called Blightspot Analysis, which works like this. You ask yourself, last week, which day you've been the most productive? Or which day you did the task the best? And then you ask yourself, what did you do differently that day? Is there anything you can reproduce? Is there anything you can make standard and so on? And that works like wonderfully.
Okay, so you iterate on what worked. Okay. Never tried that. It's usually when I have the good days or bad days. It's a lot of like mood that like happen to impact my productivity, or also other external circumstances.
Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes I don't have control over everything, but that's interesting.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't
Of
do.
course.
Do you journaling for this? Like you do?
No.
Okay, that's been a good day, so let's write down what worked. No, you don't do this. Okay.
No.
Yeah. Mike asks, what about the review of the notes you've taken? Do you review them or just take it and that's it?
So what happens is that I take them and that's it. But then I have periodic reviews on some topics. So for example, like I write myself, like myself, like every 6 months, I check my notes on this topic. Yeah, so I tend to do things like this. Yeah, more like this.
Yeah, for me, it's different, but because I'm not very proud of what I do, because I take a lot of notes. I spend not enough time reviewing them, which is a problem. I've also read the advice, like don't read 1,000 books, read the best 100 book 10 times each one. I usually, maybe it's part of FOMO, so they say no, okay, I already done this. I need to do something else. But sometimes, like when you do a second pass on your notes, sometimes you don't understand why you took that notes out of that resource, or sometimes you find that there are parts that you like more that you forgot to add, or you want to clean them. So this is also, like I mentioned earlier, the progressive summarization technique by Thiago Forte. Go look for that, and that's something interesting. Nonotom asks, have you invested in Rome? Do you think that Rome, or in general, these kinds of tools are going to grow in the next few years? I personally have invested in Rome. Apart from being a believer, I also invested 1,500,000, 1,500, not 1,500,000, $1,500 in Rome Research. It was the maximum allowed. Did you participate in the investment goal or not?
No, personally, no. I didn't even know that it was possible to invest in Rome personally. I know that I wanted to invest in Gumroad a couple of months ago when they did it. I didn't manage to do it simply because by the time that I clicked the link, the allotment was already over.
I had a painful experience with Rome, because today I received back part of the reimbursement, because I wanted to invest 10K, but then they decided to cap because they received much more money than they asked. So they decided to only cap to 1,500 each. So I had to get back 8,500. It took like 2 months to interact with the US banks
Oh,
and
damn
some
it.
fees. That was like not a good experience to invest in US from Switzerland. And I have a question I forgot to ask to you about our books. So when you publish a new book, do you create just a separate graph? You create a new account on Rome, or you add to your existing database?
Yes. So I create a new graph.
It's a bit expensive.
Then
Like if you
yes. So
publish 10
thankfully,
books.
thankfully, I wrote only two wrong books so far. So I basically have like three graphs. One which is like my notes, and two graphs for my two books.
Are
No,
you
sorry. Yeah.
are you a believer? I mean, are you into the
No.
believer plan? No. I mean, maybe that's a good deal for you because you can get three graphs, and if you think in 5 years, and I don't know, you have any uh, agreement with your readers? I mean, you're going to keep the book up for how many years? Uh,
That's an excellent question. So no, I don't have any agreement. That's something that I should probably do. Um, so the reason I don't have an agreement is because mostly like the book is sold as a file, and then the fact that they can also access the share only
that's a
version is more like
plus.
a plus.
Hmm.
But now that it's taking more, I should definitely like formalize that. That's a good point.
Okay, that's was actually the first thing I thought when I thinking about this book. So if I write 10 books, will I have to? Maybe the books benefits from being part of the same database, but then how to give access to only what they?
Hey.
That's why I also thought that maybe in the future the best model would be SaaS. So you just say, oh, this is my corpus, and maybe you ask $X per month to access to all your books. That's access and not ownership. Like every. Have you thought about this, or is this something?
Yes, I thought about this. There are a few reasons I'm not doing it. Uh, One reason in particular is because a few years ago I've tried like with like making myself a subscription newsletter. It didn't go particularly well compared with when I launched my books that instead go much better. And so I've developed the belief that like my readership prefers like to get blocks, also blocked it for themselves that like they can read and finish and so on. Then maybe that's more representative of my readership rather than in general. I don't know. I think it's a good thing to probably to explore. Yeah.
Okay, my okay. It's almost 1 hour. We are on this chat. That's amazing. I keep going, but we're going to close soonish. What I changed my mind since the beginning of this discussion. It's that I thought that your books were closer to a ROM database than a traditional books. Traditional book. Now I see that they are mostly traditional books that have ROM, like they are plus. They are also ROM adapted. Is that true? Would you?
Yeah, that's correct. And that's because I realized that even though people like, let's say, the ROM experience, like the Wikipedia experience, let's
Yeah,
call
let's
it,
say that. Yeah.
when they read a book, they still like the first time to have like a path that they follow. Then they like to also have the possibility like to diverge from that path to at some point saying, okay, now I will go explore this. But if you just give them like a dump of information, uh, then it's overwhelming, it's unclear, and also yourself as a writer, you're more likely to write well if you have a linear structure and then you
Totally
decompose
agree.
it. Yeah.
Totally agree.
So that's why.
Totally agree. Yeah, it seems like there are people who are questioning the linearity of learning Also, Andy Matuszak, you probably know Andy Matuszak, of course. So there is someone who's trying to find new ways of learning. Even the book by Thiago Forte is about this. So the ways of knowing. But maybe I thought your idea was more like, let's jump into something completely obscure. But actually, maybe it's a good thing that you are making like small steps and say, hey, this is an improvement toward like a non necessary linear learning experience. But that's not something you to totally screw with your pre-existing like preconditions or whatever. That's nice. I'm probably going to buy. I think I'm going to buy the ergodicity book because it's a topic that I don't know much about. I would like to ask you something, but maybe it's too complex to explain in a few minutes. For me, ergodic processes was something for signal theory, and I'm a software engineer. So that's really like, so since I'm going to probably write a book, I will maybe go the wrong version. Paolo asks, and then we may close because we are across 1 hour. Ciao Giorgio, ciao Luca. Any plan of a collaboration between you two? Behavioral science and financial goes seems like a great match. We don't have any plan. Who knows? Maybe one collaboration would be if I write an art book, I will ask Luca for suggestions, or I will probably, my book will end up on rBooks.
Oh, for sure, yes.
That's great. We'll keep you posted. So how can people find you if they want to contact you?
Yes, so I have my website, which is luca-dellanna with LLN.com. And then on Twitter, I write at Dellanna Luca. So it's DELLANNALUCA.
Okay, great. So Luca, it's been a pleasure. I thank you for having me here, and I hope to see you again soon.
Yes, thank you, Giorgio, for inviting, and thank you, everyone, for the question.